G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to World of Warships with Mags, and welcome aboard the Kuma. So today's video we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to start doing subscriber replays again, and this one was sent through to me by Tal. Tal is a good friend of mine and one of the official moderators on my Discord, and after seeing this match I couldn't not put it on the channel. So, and besides, I figured it was about time I showed you somebody actually good at this game. So, this match is going to start off relatively slow. Tal's going to spend some time getting himself into position, start engaging at range, playing around with the enemy and assessing exactly what they're going to do. Now, there is one thing with this particular video. This was recorded directly from World of Warships replay system, and for some reason when I ran the file that was sent through to me by Tal through my client of World of Warships to actually record this, it put my name in place of his inside of the replay, which is a bit odd. I haven't actually seen this happen before, so just bear in mind when you see my name pop up, it's not actually me playing. There is also a couple of audio glitches I noticed, but they're minor, they only last a split second. Anyways, today's map is New Dawn. It is a base versus base map. There are no capture points here, and as I said before, we are driving the Kuma. The Kuma is a Tier 4 Japanese cruiser armed with 7 single 140mm main guns, torpedo tubes, and has a firing range of 12.4 kilometers. It's a fantastic little ship with a surprising amount of firepower for its tier and size. Now, as I said, this battle's going to start off a little to the slow side. Tal's engaging at long range against Phoenix, trying to pepper it with HE, set fires on board, damage its components, and generally make a nuisance of himself, which is really precisely what a cruiser should be doing at this point in the battle. However, while doing that, he is keeping a careful eye on the locations of all his allied ships around him and keeping an eye on what's going on the map. He currently has 2 battleships to his stern, providing support. The rest of his force of destroyers and cruisers have headed through the centre of the map directly towards the enemy's base, with a secondary force of battleships currently heading down the east side of the map. And his location's just been lit up by enemy dive bombers and torpedo bombers operating in the area. Now the dive bombers are going to make a crack at him here. Tal throws it into a hard turn. That was a really bad angle for the dive bombers to attack from, turning directly into the path of the torpedo bombers just in case they release. And no torps in the water, so at this point Tal is free to continue harassing the cruisers up ahead. And once again, he's locked sights with that enemy Phoenix, which is now being engaged by secondary ships as well. It looks like it's just taken a couple of torpedoes. Now at this point, Tal is once again cycling those main guns as fast as possible, sending as much HE down range as he possibly can. As before, with the goal here to attempt to try and start a fire on the enemy Phoenix. If he can get a fire started on the ship at this point, it has probably blown its repair, and a fire on deck would be fatal to the ship. If it hasn't actually used its repair yet, well, it will have to use it to put out the fire, in which case he can continue lobbing HE until the ship is destroyed. Now, focusing down this Phoenix is actually quite important. The Phoenix is a surprisingly dangerous little cruiser in its own right, and it looks like it was trying to head around the islands over this back corner of the map. Should it have managed to get to those islands without being detected, as the Allied force pushed through on the enemy base, the Phoenix would have free rein to come in from behind and cap the base from the rear of the map. And while this wouldn't be a guaranteed victory, there are still plenty of ships available that could still intercept the Phoenix should that have happened. It would have caused ships on the Allied team to have to turn around and move back to defend the cap, and thus taking the pressure off the assault. Still cycling the HE, and the last volleys are coming in now. The Phoenix is just about gone. One more good hit and it's all over. And there it is, the Phoenix is now destroyed. 5,473 damage at this point. So, with the rear flanking ship now removed from the equation, it's time to start putting these guns to work on something a little more appropriate and a little bit more dangerous to the battleships that have moved in to support Tal as he's moving through the islands. And so we've lined up on our first target. It's a Campbelltown. First volley is already away before the Campbelltown even clears the island. No hits, unfortunately. That is the RNG of dispersion at work. Second volley in. And one solid hit on the hull there for 792 damage. But why start a fight with one Campbelltown when you can start a fight with 2 Campbelltowns? So we put the second volley into that ship and set it on fire. And then Tal quickly puts some fish in the water. 2 torp volleys into the water. So 4 torpedoes are now free. The second Campbelltown takes a massive hit of 4,752 damage, and then torps in the water finish him off. So 1 down, switch guns, HE to the second Campbelltown, 1 hit to the side, and there is the second ship removed. So Tal has just gone from 1 kill to 3 kills with the double strike award and over 16,000 damage. But now we're moving on to our next ship. It's the Tier 4 Russian cruiser Svetlana. Much like the Kuma, the Svetlana is also armed with torpedo tubes and also has 15 130mm guns, which is no small amount of firepower to sneeze at, especially when you're only in a cruiser yourself. The Svetlana, however, is significantly better armoured, so Tal's going to switch over to AP here and start releasing the AP shells at close range, and as his target is turning broadside, he's going to drop some fish in the water. So at this point, I imagine the Svetlana captain was regretting not remembering that the Kuma is actually equipped with torpedoes. He's beginning a hard right-hand turn to try and pull himself away from the torps. It's the wrong choice, although I'm not sure a left-hand turn would have saved him either. He does release a torp volley of his own before he goes down, but too little too late, and Tal was easily in a position to be able to maneuver out of the way. At this point, Tal is just maneuvering as torpedo bombers have come in. It does look like for a split second here that the carrier captain may have been looking to try and release the torps against Tal, but then they spot a near full health battleship to the rear and the torpedo bombers go off to bother him. So at this point, 4 kills, 40,000 damage and a double strike. He's pretty much secured this entire section of the map on his own. This would be a good match by most people's standards, but Tal is not done yet. He's been taking very careful notice of the aircraft and where they've been returning to. It looks like the enemy carrier is not diverting his aircraft off on an adjacent direction before bringing them back to return. So those torpedo bombers that just released on the battleship are now drawing a line directly to where the enemy carrier is currently placed. Unfortunately, Tal can't get over there quite yet. There is a Wyoming and a Tenryu sitting in the way, so we've got to deal with these first. Once again, shifting back to HE, as AP will never penetrate at this distance. First target we're going to line up on is the Wyoming, lobbing the shells at extreme range, trying once again to start fires across the ship's deck. A single fire won't do much to a battleship. Its auto repair feature can, for the most part, outdo the amount of damage that a fire will actually cause. But if you can set multiple fires across the ship, it will cause them to have to burn their repair. If they do that, and then you continue to fire and set additional fires across the ship, well, that's free damage. There's nothing they can do about it at that point. Now, the Tenryu is attempting to return fire here in order to force Tal away. However, at these sort of ranges, a simple S maneuver, as Tal's performing here, is more than enough to throw off its guns. And there we go, 1 fire on the Wyoming at this point. However, it does look like the Kaiser in the background may be paying attention to Tal as well. So he's got to be careful of potentially 2 battleships and a cruiser engaging him simultaneously here. And the Tenryu gets his aim sorted, manages to take out one of the torpedo tubes and set Tal on fire. He quickly pops his repair, and the rattling of the AAA guns also let us know that there is now an aircraft in the area. This is actually less of a problem about what the aircraft can directly do to Tal, and more of a problem that these aircraft are now going to reveal his location. Everybody can now clearly see him, so he needs to get the hell out of here. Of course, the enemy squadron are dive bombers, so they can't exactly be ignored either. And a second squadron just popped up on the Telltale for a split second and then disappears. So Tal quickly takes a look over and the bomber squadron's gone, but there's now a torpedo squadron there in its place. That's because the bombers have just been recovered by the carrier and the torpedo bombers have just been deployed. The carrier is hiding just on the other side of that island, completely separated from the rest of his team. Now, unlike the last few times that torpedo bombers have passed by Tal, this time they cannot afford to ignore him. He is still on high levels of health, he is currently the top damage dealer for the team, and it's pretty clear where he's going. So they attempt to release torpedoes in his path. It is a terrible, terrible drop. Simple turn away and those torpedoes are going to go nowhere near him. All Tal has to do is hold course for a few seconds before beginning a turn back. The torpedoes will sail right past and he can start heading back around to join the Campbelltown and having some fun with that Langley. And there we have it, the torpedoes sail past, full left-hand rudder, and we are coming around the island. Now at this point, Tal has lost line of sight to the rest of the enemy team. We can only see the Kaiser in the background. Now the Kaiser can see Tal. The carrier's aircraft are currently lighting him up, but he is outside of gun range, so for the moment he is safe from any sort of fire. That, however, will not last long. The Kaiser is attempting to come through and defend the Langley, and is just about to come back into gun range. So Tal's quickly moving direct line to get behind the island. You do not want to be getting peppered by battleship guns at range, as much as the chance of a Kaiser hitting a cruiser at this sort of range is, well, it's completely down to RNG more than anything else. It's still better to not be shot at all. And there's Langley now within gun range. So quickly aligning all the guns, send some HE down range once again. Now HE is actually very important when engaging the carriers. Carriers cannot launch or recover aircraft while they are on fire. So, setting a fire to the Langley, as Tal just did with his HE fire, now stops all aircraft where they are. The carrier cannot deploy anymore until that fire has been dealt with. In this situation, the carrier is going to immediately pop his repair because he needs that fire to go away. And Tal's setting on fire for a second time. Now the deck's burning and the Langley can't do anything. The Langley is solely reliant on its secondary weapons at this point in time. Now it did look like the Langley managed to deploy its dive bombers and its torpedo squadron right before Tal set it on fire, but it looked like both of them dropped their load at the Campbelltown rather than at Tal, and at this point there is no way for him to reload them. Incidentally, this is why when playing a carrier, why hiding in an island and staying stationary for the entire map is actually a very, very bad idea. Had this Langley stayed to the rear of the map, but close to where the rest of his fleet was formed and placed, he would have had the defense of all of the enemy team in order to keep himself alive and continue keeping his aircraft in the air doing what they do. But because he was isolated, there was absolutely no way for that Kaiser to cross the map, and that was the closest ship that could have rescued him. So, at this point, Tal is now at 76,196 damage. Unfortunately for him, he didn't get the kill on the Langley, so no Kraken Unleashed just yet, but the match is still going. We are now passing 82,000 and multiple fires have been set to this Kaiser. Now it looks at this point like the Kaiser's already popped its repair to try and put them all out, so continue firing the HE and just light it back on fire again and continue letting it go. And there is the Confederate medal. And you can see right here exactly how much damage the Kuma is capable of outputting. The combination of the fires plus the constant sustained HE at range from the Kuma, and we're just passing 87,000, and every single volley is ticking the numbers up higher and higher towards 90,000 damage. And another fire set as well. At this point at nearly 90,000, this would have been a fantastic match for just about any ship class in the game. And we're still going. So at the moment the match is very much in Tal's team's favour. They have a better point score. It is 5-on-7 his team's favour. However, the enemy team did just manage to bring it back one. A Tenryu just managed to sneak up to the back line and take out Tal's team's carrier. So now all aircraft carriers are removed from the map. And in overall team composition at this point, both teams are actually fairly level. There's 4 battleships on each side, 2 cruisers on each side, with Tal's team having the slight advantage of a single destroyer also available to them. And he has not let up fire on HE on this Kaiser for the entire time we've been talking, and we are just about to punch through 100,000 damage. Now the reason why the Kaiser isn't returning fire is it's desperately trying to do damage to a battleship that is on the far left hand side of the map, hidden behind an island, and there we go, we've punched through 100,000 damage, and with it the high caliber metal, continuing the last few HE shells into the Kaiser, and there's the detonation, kill number 5, and Kraken Unleashed to finish it off. And it's a damn good thing that World of Warships doesn't actually have ammunition limitations on ships, otherwise I am pretty damn sure he would be out at this point. So the first volley in sets fire to the Kaiser, continuing to fire HE. Now you'll notice the fire just suddenly vanishes here. I'm pretty sure at that moment is when the Kaiser popped his repair to turn the fire off, which is going to prove to be a very, very, very big mistake, as, well, there's another fire. And as the repair feature that does put out the fires does have a cooldown, well, now he's sparked up, there's not much you can do about it. And another fire set on the deck, so now there is at least 2 fires on the Kaiser, but Tal has actually ran into a little bit of a problem at this time. He's been so focused on attacking this ship that he's managed to get himself stuck on the island, so he's going to have to back it up, but at least for the next few seconds he is very, very vulnerable. And Tal knows he's in trouble. He takes a volley of AP from the Kaiser, only 1 shell hits, but with his current health it is only going to take a couple of hits to actually kill him. He needs to get rid of this Kaiser now, so he just quickly unloads the torpedo tubes, 4 torps in the water with a long lead. The Campbelltown in the background is trying to assist. He put torps into the water as well, but no impacts. Straight back over to setting fire to the Kaiser, trying to keep it going. But at this point Tal is also being engaged by a Nasu off to his left. A close quarters fight in a low health cruiser versus 2 nearly full health battleships. Tal sees that the Nasu is beginning to try and turn its broadside on, so immediately empties the left hand side torpedo tubes in its general direction. Now somehow the Kaiser didn't manage to spot the torpedoes or didn't care to maneuver against them. He takes 1 single torpedo hit in the side, starts flooding on the ship, but unfortunately the Nasu, unfazed by the torpedo launch, brings its guns to bear and drills Tal close range, finally putting an end to his absolute reign of terror in this match. And the 4 final torps launched at the Nasu unfortunately overshoot and, well, that's actually not the end of this story just quite yet. See, that Kaiser's still on fire, and that Kaiser is also flooding, and it has no repair feature available, so its health is constantly ticking down, and as you can see in the top right hand corner, Tal is still doing damage even after death. Now the Kaiser manages to very narrowly survive a torpedo hit from the Campbelltown there. That was extremely close. That would have been the end of him if that had landed home. But the truth is, this Kaiser is already dead anyway. Tal finally exits this match with 146,642 damage, 178 shell hits, 14 fires, 4 incapacitations, 4 torpedo hits, 3 cases of flooding, and of course 6 personal kills total, exiting the match with the award's liquidator and it's just a flesh wound, to go with the rest of the, well, let's face it, box of medals he managed to assemble. Unfortunately, all that effort turns out to be for nothing. If you look at the top of the screen at the moment, you'll notice that Tal's team is currently being capped out, and despite there being 2 battleships currently trying to defend, a Kaiser and a Wyoming, they unfortunately engaged the wrong ship. The Wyoming isn't the ship that's holding all the cap points at the moment, it's that Tenryu, the same Tenryu that sunk Tal's team's carrier earlier on in the match. It's been circling this area the entire time, and even once it's spotted, they never shift their guns in order to fire on it. So, after 146,642 damage and all the awards you could possibly ask for, a 6-kill match in a Tier 4 cruiser against multiple battleships, this match was a loss. As Jingles would say, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Anyways, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below and give Tal your condolences on such a horrible loss. Remember to like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll catch you next time.